Hi, my name is Faith Agugu, and I am a psychotherapist and the founder of the Healing Process, and also the founder of an age-positive movement called Silver Sirens. Join me in this enriching conversation with the beautiful Prosper, where we delve into the beginnings of my entrepreneurial journey, right from that having a market stand in Nigeria, to walking the catwalk through London, arriving in Australia, starting my own fashion business, and then going back to uni and to begin this beautiful Silver Sirens age positive community. In this session, we talk about aging well and what it takes to do that, and all the things that stops us from doing that. So join Prosper and I for this wonderful, enriching conversation.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a phenomenal guest who's redefining, edging, and empowering women over 50 to embrace their full potential. Now, Faith, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Prosper. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. You know, it took a while to get you on the show. I know your busy schedule, but today I'm so excited we have you on board. And for those that are watching right now, prepare to get excited, because joining us is Faith Agugu, a keynote speaker, expert on modern aging, and a visionary founder of the Silver Sirens. And Faith has a remarkable journey from the fashion runways of London to the sunny shores of Sydney, and now she's dedicated to helping women navigate the challenges of midlife through her venture, the Healing Process. Now, Faith, like I said, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, could you maybe share a little bit about your journey, first of all, from volunteering with troubled children in London to becoming a very successful fashion and eventually a fashion model, and then eventually transitioning to your current role as modern aging expert and founder of the Silver Sirens?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, look, I don't think I can start my journey without including my start in Nigeria, because you talked about London, but I was actually born in Nigeria, and I believe that my entrepreneurial skills were honed there, because it's kind of there that I kind of started that thing of noticing when something is missing. I remember I had my very first market stall at the age of 6 in Nigeria, and then I brought that energy and that entrepreneurial energy into my life in England, because at school at the age of 9, I started a little talk shop, like a competition to the tuck shop. And I would research all the things the tuck shop didn't have, and I would bring those sweets in. And I got permission from my headmistress, and I would have my little stand next to the tuck shop. So my Nigerian beginning gave me that drive as a young person to start to think about that entrepreneurial flavor and what is missing and how can I fill it. And I say that because that's exactly how Silver Sirens was born, was that idea of seeing that there's a gap in the narrative that surrounds women and aging, and the impulse to do something about it, to change it, you know? So I feel like, that's an important part of my story to add in with Nigeria.
Fantastic. I can so see the young Faith. What were you selling in the market stalls?
All sorts of food. I used to like cooking from that age. I'll do plantains and little stews and have my little stand with them.
Absolutely. And obviously that involves you talking to people, talking to strangers, convincing them what you have is of value to them, so they can exchange that with money. So I can only see. So would you, maybe on that note, would you say you were born an entrepreneur?
I think so. It's one of those ones, isn't it? Which came first? Was it? And I really do believe that I was born that way. That part of me was just always alive and ignited. And even now I get really excited. I'm one of those people that I can go to a place and see 10 things that are missing. So I think, yes, I think I was born an entrepreneur.
Fantastic. And when you are at that age, you're very sort of impressionable. The world is basically based, or your world is basically based on the people around you and the things that are sort of happening around you. Have you, or did you at that point have any sort of role models that you looked up to that would sort of maybe want you to aspire to want more, be more, and have more?
Yeah, look, my story, it's like most people, it's very complex. My family, my mother and father and brother went to the UK when I was 1 year old. So I was actually looked after by a friend of my mother's. And she had so much faith in me. She had four boys and she really wanted a girl, which was the reason why my mother chose her to look after me, because she and I were just absolutely tight. And I would just kind of hold on to her legs and follow her everywhere. And that woman and her family absolutely, from that really young age, absolutely looked after me, loved me, protected me, and really believed in me. And I think a lot of my confidence comes from that, feeling really wanted and special in that environment, because that's a hard environment to be the adopted almost child. But in that environment, I felt very wanted and very loved.
It does take a village to raise a child.
It really does.
Wow. Okay. And some other kid would have actually looked at it in a way that, oh, my family has abandoned me and gone elsewhere. But you actually thrived where you were positioned. So you literally just grew where you were planted.
I thrived with them. And then my second guardians were not so nice. So a lot of the difficulties that I experienced came in the few years that I was with those people. So I feel grateful that I had the strong, loving experience first, because that made that difficult time a little bit more, it made me more resilient to be able to handle that difficult time.
I can only imagine, because obviously you had you to look after yourself, and thinking that your parents had probably just left. Did you have any hopes or prospects of maybe going to reunite with them in the future?
Yeah, I did. It's interesting. I always remember this image that I had this little Polaroid picture of my family, and I would always hold that. And I recall saying to my guardians, when are they coming? When? So, I've done a lot of therapy to heal all of that. And that's why I'm a therapist. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm a therapist. But it was difficult. And like I said, having the juxtapose of that really wonderful, secure attachment, and then having this experience, I can see how the reason why I feel like I'm so strong and powerful now is because I had that strength first. But it was difficult. It was difficult going through that, thinking about, am I going to be here forever? Are they going to come? But like I said, they always said to me, your parents are coming, your parents are coming. So I stayed with these people for 3 years. And then eventually, I got united with my parents.
Absolutely, absolutely. You see, when things are happening to you, just imagine a seed. You would think you're actually being buried, but in
Yeah.
actual fact, you were being planted,
I was
and
being started. Yeah.
you then went on to be the passionate entrepreneur that actually spent 25 years in the fashion industry. Could you maybe get
Yeah.
us up to speed to how you then converted from young Faith to the person that was leading the modeling industry there?
Yeah, look, I was very fortunate that I was around the age of 16, 17. I met a woman who was a designer of a corp. There was a group of young designers who were looking for models, and they were doing fashion parades all around London. So I was one of their staple fashion models. So that's kind of how it started. And you know what? Look, I really loved catwalking because I could become a different person. I felt like I walked on the stage and this persona, this ultra confident person took over. And you know what? She's still there, because even when I do keynote speaking or I do TV, there's always a part of me beforehand that's going, oh my God, I'm so nervous. As soon as I get on stage, I'm on. So I think that part of me kind of really started to kind of develop then, and I can see her now, the really fully fledged version.
Absolutely. And obviously with all the catwalk, there's all those cat fights that happening there. What was it like, you having come
No.
from Nigeria into the London scene? I don't think you just started striding the catwalk. There would have been things that you had to do, your go-throughs.
No.
Right.
Actually, no. And I really love what you've just said, because what it tells me is people have such a specific view of the fashion industry. That there's a lot of bitchiness and it's like you said, cat fights. I never experienced any of that in my whole time. I mean, certainly there are people, and I know there are people like that. But I was very, very fortunate that that's not the people I attracted around me. And I think that's the big thing. I attracted, models are really hardworking and very dedicated because of the nature of the work. Most models are super professional, hardworking. They're the ones that show up. And I think a lot of people don't give them credit for that. And the industry, it's tough. It'll chew you up and spit you out. So you got to have your stuff together. And if you don't have integrity, you're not going to last long, like in most industries. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it certainly doesn't get the credit I think it deserves, because most people just think it's just shallow, but it attracts some really amazing creative people.
Absolutely. And just looking at the theme and the thread of your life up until right now, it's all about people, right? Yeah. From the time you were selling at the stalls to the time, you were doing the talk show, and then, you actually started dealing with people and all of that stuff. Is that why you then went on and launched Raw Fashion Agency, and maybe later on in life you went on and pursued a bachelor's degree in social science, because you would have wanted to really figure out the main theme of your life, which is social aspects? And you also majored in counseling, right? Which led you to now what you do, the healing process.
Yeah. Look, I don't think I consciously decided that I wanted to work with people, but I knew that my father was a wonderful role model. He was the one of three men who created our state in Nigeria. So River State, the Izom people, my tribal people, all around the Delta. He's one of three men who created our state. So my father's life was always about service. My father was a very contentious person, but one thing he could get things done and people respected him, So I always had this thing around got to help people. And I always learned from him that our lives is not just about getting the things we want for ourselves. Our lives has to be about what we contribute to others and how we change other people's lives. So for me, I've always felt that. And I think that leadership energy, which I got from him, has always been there. Because even at school in the UK, I was house captain, I was head girl. I was the first actually Black head girl in my secondary school, or prefect. I was all of those things. So I think that from a very, very young age, there was that part of leading. And even as a head girl, there's that thing of leading with a lot of justice and fairness. And that's one of the feedback I always got from my peers, was that you are always fair. And I think that's the way that I do most things that I do. And I think that carries through, and that makes people want to follow. Because I always think, why do people want to, follow the ideas I have? And I think that leadership, which is that fair and make sure that everyone gets the voice and there's a lot of equality, that's a really important thing for me.
Fantastic. And now tell us a little bit more about the Silver Sirens. Sorry.
Sirens.
Sirens.
The Silver Sirens. Well, the Silver Sirens is an age-positive movement that I started in 2018 because I was, as a psychotherapist, I was practicing psychotherapy now just for a few years at that stage. And women were coming to me, they were being referred to me, that were depressed around aging. And now, as an African woman, I know that my mother and my sisters, everyone reveres, we're looking forward to aging. And I know that that's changed a lot now with the Western influence on Africa, but there's a lot of still traditional communities that have this view about aging being a positive thing. So when these women were depressed around it, I thought that the negativity around aging was just around the beauty and fashion industry. I didn't realize it was prevalent because these women weren't from that industry. And yet they were really struggling. So I started seeing one woman and sharing with her my philosophy around aging. And then she would refer someone else. And at one stage, I was working with 10 women all around the aging process. And that inspired me because my entrepreneurial mind said something is wrong with this picture. So I started to research, and I noticed that the narrative around men and aging is very positive, and it's really unforgiving around women. It's like there's a belief that if a woman starts to age or look older, she's letting herself down or letting herself go. as if like there's it's a failure for women to age. So that really got my attention. I started to research on it, and then I decided that I wanted to change that narrative. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was clear that I wanted to be the one or one of the ones to change that narrative. And that's where Silver Sirens was launched. Even the name, I wanted the name to be positive, because with men, there's things like Silver Fox and he's dashing. But with women, it's always about decay and withering. So I wanted to change that with a name that kind of was aspirational. You know, I wanted young women to look at us and go, I'm not going to be afraid of aging, because look at those wonderful, fabulous women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's what I want, is that so young women no longer are afraid of aging and wasting their years thinking about it, you know?
You know, such a narrative. I just wish people would put perspective to certain things. All right.
Yeah.
Nobody buys a 2-day-old whiskey. Nobody buys cheese that was just made yesterday. Nobody travels across the world to watch a building that was just commissioned yesterday. People go and watch buildings that are ancient, architectural, you know what I mean? Things that have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why they don't see that in our women.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's society, marketing, industries make a lot of money with women's fears and insecurities, you know, and I think that's where we have to be super conscious of, you know, and aware of. And I think that's part of the problem.
Fantastic. There's one thing that I want you to address. How come we never see, even though I don't watch TV, maybe I stand to be corrected, but how come we never see news anchors that are older women?
You're starting to. It's beautiful. You really are starting to. You know, quite recently there was an American anchor who she refused to dye her hair, and she was actually fired. And that brought so much uproar. And there's a massive movement on Silver Sirens, I'm sorry, on Instagram now called the Silver Sisters. And these are women who go grey naturally and take people along the journey. Because again, before women had to dye their hair, or if they went grey, they had to kind of hide their hair. And then when it was perfectly grey, then they could show it. So now women are becoming much more confident. And it's that thing of we cannot be what we don't see. So we're now starting to see these powerful role models that are saying to other women, this is beautiful. It's beautiful for you just to be what's natural. So aging is just the most natural thing. And I always say this because my sister died at 41. Aging is a privilege not everyone gets to see, you know? So if we have the opportunity to grow old, like we should be embracing it, and we should, you know, we should definitely look after ourselves and help our bodies as best as we can, because our body is going to decay. There's things we can do, but the large part of it is attitude, you know. And I think if we realize that it's such a privilege, that changes our attitude around it.
Fantastic. Now, in your view, why do you think it's actually crucial to challenge this negative narrative on women? I mean, things have always been the way they've always been, and especially when it comes to ageism. And what sort of steps can women actually start to take to redefine their roles and visibility in society?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's crucial because we can't avoid it. It's inevitable, you know, like it's not something that no matter what I do, how much money I've got, I can't reverse the test of time, and I can't reverse the, you know, how my body ages. Like I said, there's things that I can do, but when something is inevitable and we deny it, it causes a whole lot of pain, like from a therapeutic perspective. You know, if people want to heal anything, the first thing is acknowledgement and seeing it for what it is, not a skewed version or denial. Denial doesn't get us anywhere. So the first thing is for us to accept that aging is a natural thing, number one, you know. And then the number two is to think about who are my role models, that look for role models that inspires you, and start to think about what can I do, or what do I need to start to do now, especially women in their 40s and 50s, that is going to change the next 20 to 30 years. That means doing things like looking at your diet. There may be a particular way you've eaten all your life, and it may not be serving you, because it might be things that might actually deteriorate the body more. So be aware of exercise, be aware of diet, be aware of connection, you know, like friendships and social bonds and connections. are one of the major parts of aging well. And we look at the blue zones. These are areas of the world where people live into their hundreds. What they have in common is, their connection with nature. They're usually out a lot, walking around, these 100-year-olds walking up and down the mountains, and they eat very simply, but very fresh, but they have this strong connection. There's a Japanese word called ikigai, which is finding your purpose, finding that life force, that joy. So those people have that too. So I say to people, cultivate those things. If you can cultivate those things, you'll help yourself in the aging process.
Fantastic. But Faith, I would maybe just want to draw back to maybe your life story and your experience, which presents an unfair advantage on yourself. All right. You were pretty much brought around an area where connection and people, in a bustling society where you had your own market stall and you were made confident from the get-go. You know what I mean? That means you can step onto the catwalk, you can go into places and be who you want to be. All right. Not so many people have that born with or have that opportunity to express themselves in that area. Okay. You also maybe have had to sort of really look after yourself in a way that not any other person would have been, because your parents had to go look for greener pastures, and then you had to, even though you had people that looked after you, but that sort of gave you responsibility at an early age, right? What is it then that you offer other people who never had to leave their comfort zone, that they never had to even express themselves in a way that they now need to communicate and connect with other people? Like you mentioned, it doesn't come naturally to them. I believe you do counseling and some.
I'm a psychotherapist, so that's a form of counseling. Look, first of all, with anything, I know that I've been very fortunate. I've had lots of challenges in my life, but I do know that those challenges are what grows me. So I don't see them as negative. A lot of people haven't had those opportunities to be stretched, So I always say we have to test getting out of our comfort zone. And we test that by baby steps. Because if we do it something too extreme, our nervous system will shut down. So again, from a therapeutic perspective, I always say to people, it's about growing your comfort zone and growing your muscle, your emotional muscle. So you start to challenge yourself little by little and stretching yourself and just keep going. If you're frightened about public speaking, do something just with those few friends that you trust. If you want to write that book, just sit down every day and do 10 minutes. Don't even think about the finished product. If you want to start that business, just focus on just getting that first customer and nurturing that customer. Don't worry about whether you're going to get 1,000 for now. So just start where you are, but whatever you do, start. Because I think we all get stuck in this perfectionism. If I can't be big, or if I can't do well, if I can't be the next Oprah, if I can't be the next Steve Jobs, if I can't be the next Elon Musk, I'm not going to start. Start where you are, no matter how small.
Absolutely. I quite like those words. It felt like you were speaking to me. Now I'm going to have to just start.
I think you're doing a lot.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know about maybe your perception, but the last couple of years presented a really deep concern, especially when it came to people that were almost about to retire, who maybe they were asked to dip into their super, and now they have maybe reached that age where they can retire and they really have nothing to fall back on. Or some people lost their jobs and it's very difficult for them to get back into the workforce. And there has been, from obviously where I'm from, an issue of homelessness amongst women that sort of aging over 55, because that whole tectonic shift of the last couple of years really unearthed some demons that not a lot of people were anticipating. Now, how does your organization or the Silver Sirens work towards addressing this concern? And what can individuals and organizations do to support what you guys are working on?
Yeah, look, I think that well, first I've got to kind of own that we can't tackle everything. We cannot tackle everything. So the areas that we've honed in on is around women around homelessness, because in Australia, women over 50 are the fastest growing cohort in homelessness. So at all our events, we choose an organization that tackles that issue. So the last few years, we've partnered with the Older Women's Network, and they have a Build a Brick program. So we raise money for those charities. So again, we kind of have to be really specific, because I love the idea of looking at what else we can do around nursing homes, because there's a real issue with the way nursing homes are run and set up. But right now, our focus is around homelessness, because it's such a pressing thing. It breaks my heart to see a woman that's spent all her life raising a family, supported her husband in building his business, and then at the divorce point, she's got no super. She ends up losing her home and has very, very little to rebuild. And a lot of those women are in that category. So it's a real, real issue. So I feel passionate about changing that particular trend. And people can help. Again, it's awareness. People don't think about midlife women as having a problem around homelessness. So it's really about awareness. I think we need to let people know, because sometimes people see a woman in her 50s begging and they think, what is she doing begging? There's no compassion, because it's like, why is she there? So if people are aware of this trend, they're more likely to be compassionate and supportive of those women.
Absolutely. And part of the things that you do as a keynote speaker, you obviously address things like health. I know you alluded to it a little bit, beauty, business, leadership, and spirituality. Now, how do these aspects sort of intersect and connect with modern aging, and what sort of insights do you share with your audiences?
Look, I'm not sure if they all intersect. I think the common denominator is me, and as a person who's multifaceted, like most people are. I'm not just one thing. So there's a part of me, that fashionista will always be in me, whether I'm in the industry or not. And there's that strong spirituality for me. It's important too. And I remember at the age of 14 making a decision that there had to be much more than what we see, and there had to be something. There was a force, that was a benevolent force that was guiding us all, whether we believe it or not. I just had to, for me, that was something that's important. So all of that, it's going to inform the things that I do. So with Silver Sirens, if someone else was doing Silver Sirens, it would be a very different flavor. For me, I consider it a very heart-centered community. We're non-judgmental, and I've written 10 pillars, and those are really important, because the idea of women coming together and they're bitchy and they're gossiping, I have no tolerance for that, and as a community, I never want us to be a community that's judging each other. And it's always been that every woman is invited to come in as she is, and I think the key is around authenticity. Everyone, you be your most authentic self, because most of the problem happens for people when they're trying to be what they think other people want them to be, or when they're trying to be what they think they should be to be successful, as opposed to just be who you are. That's all the world needs, the authentic version of you, the authentic version of me,
Fantastic. So with the Silver Sirens, what does that entail? Is it meetings? Is it Zooms? What is it that is being offered in this platform?
So Silver Sirens initially just began with an annual conference, because I work as a full-time therapist. So, I knew that it was going to be something that would be a side hustle. So we started off annual conference, a full-day conference. We had a number of topics and speakers that spoke specifically to what was affecting or impacting women in midlife in particular. And that was up until we had COVID. And then at COVID, we did an online event, and then we started to build a community. So we now have a membership program called the Silver Sirens Virtual Sanctuary. This is a membership program, and we run weekly online webinars and masterclasses, and all wonderful facilitators who work specifically with women in midlife and beyond. Just wonderful coaches, health coaches, business coaches, helping women to transition, helping women around health, helping women around money. So lots of different really useful resources and really top-class coaches. support work in the community with me. And that's what we do. With like tonight, we've got a book club, and there's a wonderful book called Engaging with Aging. And a woman that wrote her first book in her late 70s, and she did her first speaking gig in her 80s, you know, because our theme this year was never too late. I want women to know that whatever they want to achieve, other than be a ballerina, because that might be a bit too late for that, but everything else, everything else they can have a go at, they can try.
Absolutely. I think maybe what you're doing is giving people a new lease on life, because society would have told them that they haven't
They're over the
expired
hill.
that. Yeah.
They're over the hill. It's over now. Just start to pack up your bags. Yeah.
Wow.
Start to wind down. But I'm telling them it's time to wind up.
Oh, I can imagine. And especially you were talking about people that are leaving up until 100, because so many of us, just grow up and we want to just do all the, tick all the boxes that society presents to us in terms of go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, get a promotion.
Buy your house.
And then, yes, buy a house and things like that. And we also understand as a society, from maybe 16 to 65, you can earn a wage, right? Which is, the sort of wage ages. But from 0 to 99, you can earn a profit, which might come from investments, might come from creating assets, or anything that you can create which will keep paying you. And I don't think a lot of people have that understanding. And I think that transition that you're really changing the narrative will be helping other people to be, do, and have a happier existence up until they actually expire. All right.
The whole idea of retirement is a thing of the past, and it's become more and more a thing of the past. One, financially, people won't be able to afford to just retire. But two, people don't want to. If you're laboring with passion, you're doing what you love, people don't want to retire. And I chose this profession because I could sit down and I would get better as I age. That's why I chose this. I have no intention of stopping until I expire, as you put it.
Absolutely. There's people like Warren Buffett, I think he's like 93. There's people that are still holding those positions. We're probably not going to talk about Biden, but yeah, I think he's in his hundreds now, just seemingly holding positions, and nobody's questioning, whether they're too old or frail to keep holding those positions. But I can assume if that would have been a woman, they would have brought in people to bring her back home, something of that nature. Now, what would be the best way for maybe people to get a hold of, the Silver Sirens and see if it is a perfect fit for them, especially with the way that you guys have been working?
Yeah, look, if they go to our website, which is silversirens.org, they have all the information about everything that we have to offer, all our programs, upcoming events, and our philosophy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I quite like how we've taken a snapshot of your life and, what it is that you're working on and everything else. It kind of reminds me of that Polaroid picture that you were holding of your family while you were waiting for them to come back. If you would have been the Silver Siren who walked past that younger Faith at that time, what would you have wanted to be told by this Silver Siren now, about what was about to happen with that picture wielding kid?
She went through a bit of a tough time. Like I said, those particular 3 years was very hard for her. So I would love to have intercepted then and just whispered in her ear that, the best is yet to come. Don't give up, hang in there.
Wow. Wow, I'm hoping she's also listening at this particular moment, because she's still in there.
And I want to, finally, I'd like to say to her, I'm proud of you. Most of all, I'm proud of you.
Absolutely. You've done well. And not only, like you mentioned, contribution, you've not only sent the elevator down for other people that, are going through these things, but I think you're literally helping people become the best versions of themselves, because there's like 35 years from 65 to 100, and that's a lot of time to not be a silver siren. So I think this is something that really needs to be shouted out loud, for people to hear that there's quite a lot of time after retirement, or even when you start thinking that you have aged. Now, for those that are maybe going through stuff in their life, what would you maybe want to say to them right now, especially those that are impacting their own ageism and crippling their own growth?
You know, most of ageism is internalized ageism, like we see, which means that we've internalized the beliefs around us and we've kind of made it our own. And the most important first step is to recognize where people are doing that. Because we'll say things to each other, oh, you're too old to do that. You shouldn't try that. That's, when we see ourselves, when we catch ourselves saying those sort of things, that's internalized aging, and we should challenge those, to really be aware of them and challenge them and start to change them. Because they're very, very insidious, and very damaging and very limiting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And finally, what can people expect from the work that you're doing and the activities that you guys are, creating with those Silver Sirens there?
Yeah. Well, the most important thing is community. We know that a lot of mental health is about a lack of connection. So as people age, loneliness is a big thing, and feeling disconnected because they've, friends and members of the family might move away. So I think community is our strongest point that people will find in with Silver Sirens. They'll find a non-judgmental, inclusive community where they can be themselves and be supported along the way.
Absolutely. Well, Faith, I can't thank you enough for the amazing work and you sharing your inspiring journey with us and really shedding light on the incredible work that you're doing to redefine aging for women. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Boswell, for having me.
Absolutely. And to our viewers, if you're ready to explore new territories and embrace the opportunities that come with age, I encourage you to reach out to Faith and join the Silver Sirens community. I'm going to be putting all those details in the show notes. And I just want to encourage you to really accept who you are becoming, because that is the best version of who you are at that particular moment. It doesn't matter what time or what age it is. You just show up in the best way you possibly can to the world. Until next time. This has been Prosper and Faith. We're signing out of the Online Prosperity Show for this episode. And hopefully we meet you on the other side. Bye for now.